know how you do everything that you do.
Yeah, they've got. It's like 200 pages.
Yeah, that's what we got emailed to.
Yeah, I just.
I had to cook. They're having a co-ed too, so it don't leaks down there. So
I could read it.
no, it's supposed to be every Monday, but Halloween was to Thursday this week, and then Monday next week, and that's it. Ballpark's done until, thank God.
Are you ready? It's about.
It was good. It was a good tournament, but
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Excuse me. If everyone's here for the public hearing for the 2001 disasters, that would be the disasters in East Kentucky for the flooding of February and March of 21, and of course the tornado that here in December of 21. So our purpose today will be to go through a little bit of we're going to do the PowerPoint, walk through a little bit of things that has to do with our action plan. So we're going to do question and answers at the end and comments, but we'll also take time as we walk through it. So if you have a question at that point in time, if you would, just state your name and who you're with, and then you'll have some time to speak. So let's start with introductions. I'm Jennifer Peters. This is Gabe Nickel. This is Travis Weber, and we're with the Department for Local Government out of Frankfurt. Hello?
Yeah.
Mute all.
We all wanted to say that.
Okay, so if we would, let's start. Like I said, this first slide here is about the public hearings. We did hold our first one Tuesday night in Hazard. We had a turnout about like this there, and we had some comments there. And what we want to do with those, we're going to post those on our website as soon as they get to where they can. Those comments will be posted. Once we're done with this one and it gets back to us and we got it where we can post it, we'll post that on our website as well. So if you want, just keep always looking at our website, because we're putting stuff out there on a daily basis, and we can't just always email everyone to tell them it's out there, but we're putting different stuff out on a daily basis because that's how stuff's coming to us sometimes. So
Jennifer, did you want everybody to sign the sign-in sheet, whether they signed the,
if they signed on the speaker sheet, that's fine.
anybody need this brought to them, didn't get a chance when they came in?
So just go ahead and advance me, please. It's taking a long nap. Okay, so our money is coming through the Department or Housing and Urban Development, and it's coming to the Commonwealth, and then Commonwealth is giving it to the Department for Local Government. As you've heard, and the governor has spoke about it before, we got right at $75 million in funding for long-term recovery and mitigation efforts. So today's public hearing will provide you with a review of the program areas and the budgets that we've set for those. And when we talk about program areas, that doesn't mean it's just a broad, this is what we're setting aside. We want to do this type of program, and this is how much money we're setting aside for that at this point in time. And later we will get into a little bit more specifics about it. I'll speak about halfway through this, and then I'll turn it over to Travis, and Travis is going to walk through, we'll start walking you through. He'll do housing, I'll do infrastructure, Gabe will do economic development. So it will proceed. Next slide, please. Okay, the action plan was posted on our website in October 20th, and our 30-day comment period will run through November 21st, 22 at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can submit your comments to us via email at dlg.dr@ky.gov. You can email our office at the Office of Federal Grants, 100 Airport Road, 3rd floor, attention DR team. You can call us at 572-573-2382, or you can, there is a form on our website there, where it's listed there, let's just kind of long to call out, but it's a web-based form and you can just go in and it has specific, like if you want to make a comment on section 1, you'd go in there and add what you want, and it has your contact information so that we have that, because as you see here, we have to address each and every one of your questions or comments in the action plan. So we need to be able to state whose comment. And as I said, they'll all be into the action plan. If we have to change something before we address your comments, because all the comments will be attached to the action plan that goes to HUD. Okay, next one, please. Okay, here's kind of a funding timeline. I know y'all been hearing about this $75 million coming for quite a while. And you know, I don't have to tell you that in December of 21, you had a tornado. You're here, you've lived it. But these are the disaster declarations that we're working with. The 4595 is the Eastern Kentucky flooding, and the 4630 is your tornado. Can everybody hear me okay, with even online?
Probably longer.
Okay. Okay, in September of 21, Congress appropriated $5 billion for disasters that happened in 2020 and 2021. So we got, our fair share was announced in May of 22. Let me turn it. Thank you. Now I lost spot. That's all right. All right, in May, we got our funds allocated from HUD, and after that, that kind of started our time frame, our time clock ticking, because with HUD, they give us certain days to do certain things. And they move kind of slow, but they expect us to move at a rapid pace, and they expect us to do a lot. And that was data gathering from FEMA, from SBA and stuff like that. We've done that. So we are now to this point, and next slide, please. So I hope everyone here has had a chance to look at the action plan, but if not, there are a couple of hard copies over here tonight. There's a Spanish version online. Thank you. All right, and here's just a couple of things that we had to do for the action plan, which I've kind of touched on them a little bit here, was we had to conduct an unmet needs assessment to understand what you need. We also had to do a mitigation needs assessment, which those have been done. And the next thing we have to do is kind of leverage the limited amount of funds we have with any other funds. So with this, you might have, say you need some work at your infrastructure, but if FEMA has touched it or your insurance, whatever, we can come in and help. I don't know if we're going to do a lot of working with the FEMA match, but anyway, I can do FEMA, I can do infrastructure. If the city, say the city had money, their insurance covered part, but you have a gap there and you still need funding, you can ask us for funding to help you fix your infrastructure. And when we do that, we're going to do it, we're going to use resiliency, and we're going to put it, excuse me, my mouth gets dry and it's awful, huh? Yeah, we're going to build you back better. Okay. We got to use resiliency and mitigation measures in almost everything we do. So we have to spend 80% of our funds in the HUD mitigated mid areas. And mid means most impacted and distressed by HUD's definition. And in those, there were 4 counties in the declaration. Actually, 2 were just by zip codes, but we chose to go whole county. That's Graves, Hopkins, Warren, and Breathitt. And then they'll get 80% of that 75 million has to be spent in those 4 counties.
Wait,
Yes,
say those counties again.
for the 4 mids,
Uh-huh.
Graves, Hopkins, Warren, Breathitt.
Okay.
Are you,
Yeah, I know. I thought they were.
you okay?
Okay.
Yeah,
wait.
21.
I'm caught up.
And the next thing we have to do is we have to spend 70% of all of our funds on the low to moderate income, either persons or households. That's by HUD's definition. That's all right. So we have to provide the public the opportunity to review and comment on our action plan. And that's what we're here today, so that we can talk to you with it about it, and then you can submit us questions. Our goal is to submit the action plan to HUD by the end of this month. That's a lot to do, but that's our goal. And then once we submit it to HUD, HUD will have 60 days to review and get, either approve or send us comments back. And if they send us comments, then we have to, it'll be a back and forth thing. And the longer it takes to get this action plan done and approved, the longer it'll take for us to get the money. Not that it's already been a while, but we're getting there. We are hoping to have the programs ready to launch by the first quarter of 2023. Let me put that as the year 2023, not, because I know we're already into fiscal year 23, but so we're looking at maybe spring, hopefully early spring, that we'll be ready to go to the next step. Once we get our grant agreement executed with HUD, we will have 6 years to complete this program. So here again, it's just like the time frame that we walked through. That kind of tells you what I've discussed already, but it just puts it in a time frame. So November is when we have to submit, and we hope to hear back from HUD by January. That would be their 60 days. So. Okay, here again, we discussed that it has the most impacted and distressed areas. Excuse me. Funding can be used for long-term recovery for projects such as housing, economic revitalization, and restoring infrastructure. It is considered the funding a last resort, and it must meet an unmet need or mitigation needs. I'm awful today. Mitigation needs that other federal funds haven't been able to touch. So you have to use your FEMA, your SBA, insurance, anything like that. And what is left there as the gap, we can bill if it's a eligible activity. Okay. A portion of the funds must be available for mitigation needs to make impacted communities more resilient for current and future risks, which can include the infrastructure. We've got some planning, we've got housing and economic revitalization. And here's a little, we're going to start on a little bit of the breakdown. As I said, we've got the 74,953. And with that, we have a mitigation set aside. That's 15% of that 74 million has to be spent on mitigation measures. So if we're building a house in the back and it's going to still be to where it can be flooded, we have to address that. If we need to do something at the water plant to make it more resilient for something, that can count as one of our mitigation activities. So we have to address that as we go into these program areas. I've done the grant timeline there that just reiterates that we have 6 years from the date to expand our projects. But if you get a project, you don't have, if you get a project funded and you finish it within that 6 years, that's great. But we, the state, we have 6 years to be totally done with our funds. Okay, with the national objective, that's what we're talking about with the LMI, the low to moderate income. We have to spend the 70% on that, and that 70% comes to the 48,793,745 has to be spent on LMI activities, but that doesn't count planning and administration costs. The LMI must be 51% either units occupied by LMI households or 51% of persons served. Like on a utility project, if it's an infrastructure project, it would be 51% of the persons served, not households. All right. So we know we have to do the 70% low to moderate income, but that doesn't mean that if someone's house that was destroyed and they're over income that we can't help them. They just don't count in that 70%. But we have this other one that is called urgent need. And that's where we can step in and help somebody that is not a low to moderate income person. We can use this urgent need if needed. That's there as kind of a backup for us. And what you see here, this is the 2022 HUD income limit for the 4 mid areas. So that's what you would use to base your LMI on. Okay. Thank you. Here again, this is just the map of the 4 impacted areas or the mid areas. Again, 80% of all CDBG funds, which is the 59 million, almost 60 million that has to be spent in those 4 areas. Those 4 areas, that includes the administration fees and that kind of stuff too. So it'll be a little less than that, but it'll still be that much in those 4 counties. Okay, as you can see, HUD announced, identified the mids in their allocation announcement notice. And I have them listed here, which we've gone over, Grace, Hopkins, Breathitt, Warren. And beside them, I have their FEMA identity number. Okay. This is the list that has the other affected counties in it. You know, there were 64 in total, but these are the counties that are still out there that are eligible for that remaining 20%, which is about $14 million. For these counties right here. So do we have any questions on anything that I've gone over so far? No? Then I'm going to turn it over to Trax. Your clicker does start, sorry.
All right.
No,
Right.
you did it for
Hit the next slide. So here's a breakdown of our funds that were in the different areas that we're going to use the 74 million. You can see that there are 4 different pots for housing. And to keep in mind what that is that with the Community Development Block Grant Program, housing is not always done the same way. And so therefore it's divided into different categories because of the way it has to be completed and the predetermining eligibility. We'll then touch on economic revitalization, infrastructure, and public services. Okay, so for the housing, the first one is single family new construction. And I think the biggest thing to clarify here with this is that when you think of new construction housing with the Community Development Block Grant Program, and when I say Community Development Block Grant, that also includes the disaster recovery. New housing is constructing housing where housing was not previously at before. It does not mean building a new house on a lot that had a house on it prior to the disaster. That is considered rehabilitation and reconstruction. So with new construction, this would be the redevelopment of, for example, let's say that you had an old strip mall that existed prior to the disaster. The strip mall is now been raised because of the damage from the disaster, and the lot will now serve as the site of single family housing units, 2 to 3 bedroom single family housing units. That would fall under new construction. And for new construction, the maximum grant award is $200,000 per unit. Now, when you look at this and you do math and you see $4 million got to be spread over, but keep in mind, like Jennifer talked about, with housing, with these CDBG disaster recovery funds, this is the last of your money that goes into the assistance necessary to produce that housing unit. So think of it as if you're trying to fill up an entire jug of water and you're dumping from different size containers to fill up that gallon. That last 20%, that last 10% that you need in order to get this house to be affordable for that family, that's what you use the CDBG disaster recovery dollars for. This is not a tool or a resource to build a total new unit independently by itself for a family. This is to rely upon as that gap financing necessary to make that unit affordable because of the type of the way that we offer the assistance. Keep in mind too, yes.
Not to interrupt, but if it's the last 10 to 20% in, just doing the quick math, if it's 200,000 per unit.
Yeah.
Is that for single family? It's the last 10% in.
Go back one slide there.
The last 10% in, you're talking about if they were to use the max, that's $1 million or $2 million home.
No, no, no. No, when the max award is $200,000, but we're not going to give you more than you need. If you're a family of 3 individuals and you need a 3-bedroom house or a 2-bedroom house built back, and your house is going to cost $180,000 to build, and you've got $100,000 from your home insurance, and you've got $50,000 from FEMA, well, what you're missing is $30,000 to get a unit. We bring in the 30,000. We're not going to give you 200,000 if you only need 30,000.
I understand that. I guess what I was saying is, why is the
Because there could be
so high?
because it allows for up to $200,000 in the event that there are rare instances where no other resources could be pooled together to produce the unit necessary.
I mean-
So it's the max. It's not what everybody is entitled to or would receive as part of the program. Now, keep in mind too, this is for primary residences. You must be able to prove that this is your primary residence in order to be eligible for assistance. It does not qualify for second homes, or under this one, it's not for rental properties or units or structures that you may rent out or lease out to family members or whatever the case might be. There are affordability periods that have to be complied with this. So we do have expectations and requirements that you must occupy this unit after the assistance has been provided for a certain defined period. What that will be forthcoming in the guidelines that are coming later on. It won't be in this action plan right now. And it's also going to be based upon the level of assistance provided per unit. When it comes to eligible applicants, it is eligible for units of local government to serve as a pass-through for those funds to individuals that would need this type of assistance, or for units of local government to partner with local entities to work with those individuals directly and then pass those funds through in order to get them out to the individual applicants and households. DLG as the state does reserve the right to be able to work with those independent organizations themselves directly, rather than funneling through a unit of local government if necessary and they meet the minimum requirements for eligibility. Okay, if you want to go on to the next slide there. Okay, now this right here, you'll see $17 million. And the reason for that is that this is where most of the funds are going to be required in order to address the need, because most of the housing that's going to go back in these communities is where housing was before. People are going to be reconstructing housing on lots where their homes were damaged and they can no longer occupy them. Just like with the other, this is not eligible for second homes. This must be a primary residence, and it is for home ownership. This is not rental here. This is still part of home ownership. Maximum award per applicant. So the per applicant is not the individual household or family. The applicant is that unit of local government or jurisdiction. They can apply to DLG for up to $500,000. The maximum award that they could then provide to a household or a family would be $100,000. But again, this is still utilizing the same model that we had with the new construction before, where you are filling in that gap for the financing in order to make that unit affordable in the event that that family would not qualify for supplemental financing in other areas. To be eligible for this, this must serve as the primary residence. It must be damage sustained in the 2021 disaster, and the structure that is to be addressed must be an eligible structure. With this type of one, and I don't know if we have too many people that are still listening regarding kind of the flooding. We will work through situations in the event that we cannot put a house back on a lot that may not be suitable to build back. We do have provisions that we can kind of work through to determine that eligibility if we can't get a house back on a lot that once existed. I know sometimes too in the cities we do have some shotgun style housing. It is very difficult to kind of build that shotgun style housing back and meet code now. So we may have to do some shifting of lots, which could still qualify under rehab reconstruction, but it may not actually be on the same lot. But those are very unique circumstances. Okay, go ahead. All right, multifamily new construction. This is for the construction of new housing where housing did not exist before for multifamily, which is 5 or more units. So this can include, like I talked about, we were talking about earlier about with, I think this was, we're talking about the hospital or the senior center or the senior housing that was damaged before. This is where you may get some assistance to try to address those senior units that were destroyed with the tornado. This is where you could try to utilize some of these resources, partnered and leveraged with other funding sources to try to get some of those senior units built back. Again, maybe not the same way that it was before, but in a different capacity and maybe a more functional capacity in how we look at housing today when it comes to multifamily and accessibility. Maximum award is $1 million for a new construction project. And again, that's $1 million to the unit of local government who is then working with that local partner, developer, nonprofit, for-profit, to construct the new housing. So the $1 million is not an applicant by an individual or a landlord. It is an applicant from the unit of local government. I will point out, regarding the affordability is different here than what it will be for the single family. There is the 20-year affordability on these units versus a 20-year affordability, which means whatever developer, whoever owns this facility has to ensure that this multifamily complex now remains affordable housing for at least 20 years. Go ahead. Okay. Final one here for housing. This is multifamily and small rental rehabilitation. So this could be less than the 5 units. And this is where you may have individual landlords in your community that are looking to rebuild back some of their houses. I know a lot of the landlords that we've talked to have said, look, I don't want to be a landlord anymore. I'm out of the business of being a landlord. I'm tired. I'm burned out. I want to just take the assistance that I got from the disaster and I'm going to invest it in something else. I don't want to bring it back here. But if you do have individual properties and landlords that do want to try to build back those single family units on the same property that they were before, this is the pot that it would come out of. This is what we're probably going to see the most, again, when it comes to rehabilitation, when it comes to building back houses. You're going to be putting housing back on lots where housing once existed before, whether that's multifamily or single family. Maximum award is $75,000 per unit. There will be a set of program guidelines that will be forthcoming that will follow in detail kind of what those exact requirements are in regards to the for the long-term compliance of the multifamily houses. Again, you must comply with the affordability periods. We will have defined affordability periods based off level of assistance in those program guidelines. And the same eligible entities that were eligible under the new are also eligible under this program, except for, like I said, we talked about landlords more specifically here. All right, go next slide. All right, housing counseling and legal aid. So we talked about, we're going to end up with a lot of families and households that are going to become either new homeowners altogether, or they're going to be homeowners in a completely different way than they were homeowners before. We don't want to leave those families and those households in a new situation that they are unaware on how to prepare or handle themselves with these. So therefore, under the CDBG DR program, we do allow for grants for housing counseling and legal aid services so that these families can be educated on what it means to be a homeowner and help them with fiscal responsibility, what expectations are for planning in regard, to fix your items, to repair your home, letting you know that you own that structure now. Nobody is going to be able to assist you with that structure going forward. You are a homeowner. It does require certified HUD housing counseling agencies, nonprofit organizations, and community-based organizations. We will also have guidelines specifically detailing who is eligible for housing counseling services in our program guidelines that will be coming out. So I think that's the last slide for housing. Go ahead and hit one more. Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to be driving 8 hours for just a couple of slides, but anyway, I oversee the economic development sector. We've only budgeted $4 million for this, and we're basically going to stick to the small business grant program, which is going to be 10 employees or fewer. Again, we were expecting our money to be in the spring of 23. The maximum award is $200,000. And that was, or $20,000 per new full-time equivalent job. Not new necessarily, it could be retained. Typically on economic development, you're always surveying on the back end. So you don't know if you're going to meet the LMI 51% low to moderate income. How we're going to do this program is we're going to survey on the front end to see if that business actually qualifies. So we'll know ahead of time if they're going to meet the 51% low to moderate income. What we are going to use these funds for are working capital or equipment. Those are the two eligible activities that we're going to use those for. And again, that is for job retention and new job creation. It doesn't really change who is eligible applicant. City, county, or tribal governments can apply through DLG. It will be a competitive process, just like the program is now. But we obviously know that there were some big manufacturing facilities that were damaged and leveled. But this program is strictly designed for the small business grant program. Jennifer, and I'll be back in just a second.
Hi. I know I started off and said I was just with DLG, but my specialty area is the infrastructure area. I deal with water and sewer projects. All right. With this DR funding, we're adding in stormwater projects. I mean, I've done some stormwater projects before, like separation of combined sewers and stuff, but we're actually going to do stormwater management in this, which will be a new, kind of a new little area here. But as you can see, I've got 25 million set aside in our budget for this, with 20 into the mid and 5 out to the state mids, the other counties outside the 4 areas. So what we're going to look at is what can we do to help you strengthen? What do you need at your infrastructure? Do you need some resiliency, some hardening of your facilities somewhere? Did it take out something that it needs to be replaced, but it needs to be replaced better? We can do that in this area here. We're going to also work into this, the mitigation measures as well. So the max here for an application area will be $3 billion for this area. So when I talk about the mitigation and stormwater management, we're going to look at both engineered and nature-based. So if there's something that we need to do to help you with stormwater management that you're having an issue with now, I don't know how bad y'all have it down here with stormwater, but I know you can have flash flooding. So to be the eligible applicants will be just like the actual regular CDBG program. That will be your cities and your counties, and you'll work with a certified administrator that knows the CDBG rules. Now, the CDBG regular rules will be different from these. What we're going to do to help you with the disaster recovery rules and regulations, we're going to develop a new handbook. Yay. And we'll have a whole set, there'll be a new handbook, there'll be a new set of guidelines, there'll be new policies, procedures, and applications. The application stuff, they started reviewing that, I think, today. I sent that up for them to look at to see what we had to do. So you need to be an LMI, you need to be in the disaster area, and you need critical public infrastructure. Now, for planning, this is something different. We got 1.5 million setting aside for resiliency planning. And this will be working with state, local, regional hazard mitigations, watershed, and resiliency planning. So we're going to actually set money aside if you need a plan, if you don't already have one and you need one created, we've got money set aside for that. But if you have a plan and there's something in that plan that you want to do, a project, that's what we'd like to do. We would like to help you put some of your mitigation measures that's sitting on the shelf in a book. We'd like to take that book off the shelf and actually do a project with some of our mitigation fees. So the maximal there for the planning portion to get a plan done will be between 25 and 100,000. Just depends on what you need. We will be working with the Division of Water and their their mitigation team, their floodplain management and stuff like that. So we all stay on the same page as far as mitigation goes. The eligible applicants here, again, will be your units of local government, your cities, counties, and tribals, and you can work with a nonprofit planning organization to help you with that. So, again, for the eligibility, you must be in an affected area, propose a plan that will mitigate risk, current and future, and it'll be done on a weighted scoring. So it'll look at your LMI, it'll look at your social vulnerability index, your actual deed or your and others, which will be explained when we do come out with our guidelines, which we hope to have them ready by the spring. We hope to be ready to go with those as soon as HUD says you've got your money. So next slide, please. And I think that's the last one for me. So I'm going to turn it back over to Gabe and he's going to give you some instructions.
All right, we're wrapping up here. For those people that are online, comments, just please raise your hand. For those here in attendance that have signed up to speak, or if you want to speak and you haven't signed up yet, we can bring that over to you. If you haven't done so already, signed up. But please state your full name, and then your comment, and speak slowly and clearly so we can hear you. Each person that is signing up to speak will have 3 minutes, not 3 minutes to speak. Yeah.
We'll be here all night.
Yeah. And, I will raise my hand up, whenever you have 30 seconds left. Next slide, please. So now we'll open up for questions or comments.
Start with Jill.
Jill, you can go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Jill Salea. I'm here representing Mayfield Rebuilds. We're the community-based planning group here in Mayfield. We've been working for months now to come up with a way to come out of this disaster, and hopefully you guys are going to be a big part of that. I thank you very much for your information. You've mentioned a lot of things that we did have some concerns about, and I just want to say a couple of things to clarify so that we all understand exactly how the housing money is going to work. I just want to state that here in Mayfield, we have over 400 homes that were pretty much completely destroyed. There were some that were just damaged, but for the most part, we're dealing with homes that don't exist any longer. So we did have some concerns about understanding fully about which ones will qualify for the rehab, and Travis had mentioned that to me, and I just want to make sure everybody understands that now fully. Travis, if you don't mind, to address that particular need for our community.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, Jill, I think what you're referring to, are you talking about doing the rehab on the existing lot? So
Yes.
that, yes. So, yeah, to clarify and kind of reiterate what we had mentioned before, the houses, if you are putting housing back on a lot which had housing before, that falls under rehabilitation reconstruction. And that's why you see a substantial more amount of money in that pot versus in the new construction pot, because new construction will be limited to putting housing back where housing did not exist before. So yes, that you are correct when it comes to, and I will say too, that when it talks about putting it back on the same lot, it is referring to the lot that the house was on, not necessarily the same footprint where the house was before. We can move it to a different part of the lot that may be more conducive to how that lot is positioned and the type of house that will be built back.
And then would you also explain one more time, we discussed about landlords that probably don't want to rebuild, that don't want to be in that business any longer.
Yeah.
What are some of our options there, please?
Yeah, so landlords, if, you know, now landlords, if they don't want to rebuild back, they will not be eligible for these funds. But that does not mean that those lots then cannot be reused for single family home ownership units. So you could put single family home ownership back on those lots where housing once existed before, if that's part of the redevelopment strategy. Yes.
Thank you so much. We
Yep.
appreciate you.
Oh,
all.
yeah, absolutely.
Want to go ahead and get the gentleman that's online? But
You may go ahead. Hey, John Russell, if you want to go ahead and speak.
Thank you. I'm actually, well, I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm a FEMA employee and I've worked closely with Jill and Mayfield Rebuilds. One of the things the city is pursuing is rebuilding a downtown, not exactly in the same location of the old historic downtown. The area that they are moving into had more single family homes. They want to convert that to mixed use, including ground floor commercial and perhaps upstairs housing. That would not be reconstruction the way I understand it. And so I think the concern may still be present for Mayfield needing new construction funding rather than reconstruction everywhere. In some cases, certainly reconstruction will be great. But in other cases, they're shifting their land use plan and still have a significant shortage of housing. Excuse me. Okay, that's my comment.
Thank you. I think we got it. Yeah. We did. Next up.
Anyone else?
I don't need to, just, that, we covered it all, so.
covered.
Yeah, Ms. Blackwood, was that? Okay, all right. Ryan?
And Gabe, even though you were only here for a few minutes, it's good to see you again, buddy. I had a few questions. Thanks for answering the one about the single family ownership. That does make sense because, first of all, let me introduce myself. Ryan Drain. I'm the executive director of the Mayfield Graves Long-Term Recovery Group. And I'm also, in Mayfield Rebuilds as well. So highly active in that organization. Couple of questions on the multifamily, on the rental housing. With the rental rehabilitation and reconstruction, does that require, I just wanted to clarify what you'd said a while ago. Does that require the same ownership or could it be different ownership if they were rebuilding rental housing on a parcel where low to moderate income or rental housing had previously
It
existed?
does not have to be the same ownership.
Okay, good.
But now you would want to, before any work would begin, you would want to complete transfer of, you'd want to go through our requirements. So don't do anything immediately, but I will say that you will need to secure title for the property before any work could be done for the new organization that would want to do that.
And I'm assuming that goes with rehabilitation as well. If we were to buy a home that, like as a nonprofit,
Yeah.
buy a home and rehabilitate that home for rental use. Okay. Thank you. For the public infrastructure and the stormwater management, and I know that this was mentioned at the beginning, that was highlighted in a couple of sections, but I know that there has been a lot in the last session, and again, I'm sure there will be in this session for infrastructure. And there's a lot of funding sources for infrastructure that's out there. Will this be the last money in as well for infrastructure?
You mean, well, that would kind of depend on what your project is. Are you talking about like something that matches FEMA?
Could be that, or something that, let's just say the state, made funds eligible for infrastructure last year. Would the legislative approved state funds have to be utilized first prior to coming to this fund to utilize for the infrastructure?
We haven't delved that far into it yet, but I think if you had some money that was available from is the state money, is that in the form of a loan? Or
Talking about the clean water.
No, I think he's
Is
saying
it the clean-
hypothetically.
is
It could be that, or hypothetically, if more infrastructure funding is approved in the upcoming session, all of the others carry that it's the last money in. I was just wondering if it was the same for the infrastructure.
Okay, our infrastructure will be available regardless. You'll just have to use any other funds available first. But if we wanted to match us, I guess, with the cleaner water funds, I don't see that that would be a problem.
Yeah,
I
okay.
mean, and if you could, if you have a SRF loan, a small one or whatever, and you could only do part of the project with that, but you needed more, we partner with them too. I mean, there's different cases of funding availability that we could look at. And like I said, when we do guidelines, we'll have more
Perfect.
information for you.
I think probably the best thing, the best thing
Just one.
with this is just, and, Ryan, I think you maybe worked with Gabe before on these, it's just to think about, utilize the CDBG money when you have nothing else left for everything. So
Yeah.
it's economic development, whether it's infrastructure or whether it's housing. And I say that for two reasons. One, because we can't do anything until you have secured all your funding anyways. And, for a project, so if you've got a $4 million project, we're not going to be the first one there anyways. We're always going to be the last.
Yeah.
So secure that. And then second reason I say that too is our money comes with a lot of encumbrance. You don't want to use it unless you absolutely have to use it too. So that's the reason I say, make sure you exhaust all your other resources, because if you can leave us out, it's going to make the long-term use and oversight of your project a lot easier and cleaner.
Absolutely. Just one last question. On the resiliency planning, I'd like to ask that DLG also include potential funding for municipalities to conduct studies on housing resilience as well. In addition to stormwater, we've got scientific data that proves that if we had certain resiliency factors in place, 40% of the homes that were destroyed in Mayfield would still be standing today. So I think that would be an important thing for us to take a look at from a resiliency standpoint, just to be able to see what we could do as far as planning and at least getting some more information with that. Thank you all very much.
Mayor, you want to,
I didn't follow the rules. So.
you're okay, you're okay.
All right, my name is Kathy O'Neill. I'm the mayor of Mayfield. I know that the city will be partnering with long-term recovery in all of these projects, but my question is specifically concerns, is there any place in these pots of money for the rebuilding of our police and fire facilities?
Well, so we have talked, I think you, me, and Jeremy have talked a little bit about the fire in the past. There is some potential with the fire. Unfortunately, there is not potential with the police department because it is considered for the general use of government, which is ineligible.
Just the same like the mayor's office.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am. And so now the fire,
I
there
can
is
argue
some
that
more,
point.
there is some more flexibility in the fire because of the way the services are rendered and the way that this unit is structured, that we can do a little bit more there
Okay,
than what we can with the police department.
okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Protest that, but I thank you very much.
Now, Mayor, what I will say though is that with the way our action plan is designed, there actually is not in the CDBG DR to use DR funds for it, but you could use it with the regular CDBG that we have, and I think that's what we've talked about a little bit before. Yes. Mhm.
Different part that's not.
But no, we talked about regular CDBG because of the action plan.
John Russell is posted there.
There's a couple of them up there.
Well, it's just the last.
Well, it's their proposal to build a new multifamily project in an area that was previously single-family housing, be considered new construction.
I think I answered. I think he actually read that one. I think so.
He expanded on it when he asked it.
Yeah. So John, I'm going to read the second question you put up there. Say the city or a developer approved by the city of Mayfield acquired multiple former single-family lots and proposes to build a large multifamily project. would this hypothetical example be considered reconstruction? I'm going to say yes as of right now when I'm reading what you're putting on there. I cannot guarantee 100% once everything comes that yes, it would be, but I'm going to say yes as of the way it reads right there.
Are there any other questions? Okay. I think that concludes our action plan public hearing. Thank you all for coming and being a part of this. You can always reach out to us. I think there's a slide at the more slides that just has our contact information on it. Check.
This presentation is already on our website. Posted there for you if you want. It has all of our contact information for the three of us, because we are the 3 branch managers in those areas. There are other staff that will be working with us. I mean, it's not just the 3 of us. We've got a few more back. We've got a couple that are online, but they're good, taking a boot camp class. Oh, and Kathy was on there.
Great job, guys. You did a good job.
Kathy.
There you go. Wave to you. Have safe travel back.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.